Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Ray Sang of IndustryMe. Ray, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. This is super weird, I can't lie.
Yeah, yes, it's so funny. We were talking a little bit before we got started, but you're doing so many awesome things. I'm super excited to have you on the show, as I know you're the one that's always usually interviewing and hearing from other people. So before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Ray so you can hear about all the awesome things that she's doing. And a music lover at heart, IndustryMe founder Ray Sang is dedicated to shining a light on budding talent. Fascinated by the constant stream of new sounds, she started the music and entertainment platform to give a voice to the creative she felt were being overlooked by the mainstream and choosing to specialize in pop and R&B. As a journalist who has remained passionate about sharing stories, Ray has built her career by having candid conversations with creatives about their journey and perhaps unseen struggles. Seeing each interview as an opportunity to learn something new, Ray's approach to journalism is centered around giving fans an unfiltered insight into the entertainment industry, the good, bad, and the ugly. Ray, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I am. Hello, guys. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Super excited to have you on. And before we got more into everything you're doing, phenomenal with your company, I wanted to hear how everything got started. So could you take us through what I call your CEO story, and we'll let you get started with your business?
Well, ironically, it kind of all started by accident. So while I was at university, everyone had this period where everyone was kind of like starting blogs and, just doing things because they were a bit bored. So for me personally, I just kind of started something with no background in journalism, kind of no idea of what I wanted to do, but kind of seeing that there was this huge gap in the mainstream for underground talent. People weren't getting the time of day if they didn't have a certain number of followers on social media, or if they weren't hitting certain number of streams. And I just thought, well, the industry is not reflexive of the talent that's out there at all. Who's going to talk about these people? So I decided that I would. I had no idea what I was signing myself up for, but I guess you never really do. And I just kind of wanted to be a voice for the people who were being neglected. And for me, kind of music had become about vanity metrics, about all of these things that don't really matter. And I just kind of wanted to be different and bring it back to the talent and the importance of the industry. So yeah, that's how I started.
Nice. I absolutely love that. And I love, you being able to kind of highlight and make a more of a representative viewpoint on the music industry, because I think I think when I grew up, there was kind of a phrase, kind of unsigned hype. And I think it was even like a publication or a site or something like that. But it kind of speaks to that, where there's much more than sometimes we hear. And if you don't hit these certain quote unquote metrics or these certain figures, you don't get that opportunity to have that light shine on you. So that's why I love everything you're doing as far as giving the voice to maybe what some might say the voiceless to some degree.
Yeah, I really have a passion for being a voice for people who don't necessarily have a voice. And I also think in particular genres, so for example, pop, you see a lot of white faces all the time. And there are Black people or people of color making pop music. And I think just examples of things like that, you don't see it. So if you don't see it, you'll assume that it doesn't exist. And I think that's very dangerous to like have people thinking that there's only one type of person that can make a particular type of music when it's really not like that at all. So yeah.
Yeah, and I would say especially in, I think that obviously the more creative industries, because I think that's where you start to get stymied and you don't have the creativity, because you, like you said, you have that I guess that model of what this is, what pop is, whatever any genre might be, and you kind of, I guess, put a ceiling on the creativity and the opportunity to kind of hear from different voices with different perspectives and maybe have different levels of talent and different kind of flavor, so to speak, to kind of integrate into making the music even better.
Exactly. And even with things like female rap, for example, a lot of the female rappers, the current aesthetic is very like hypersexualized, or if you don't kind of fit the Meg the Stallion type mold, you're just not going to have a career. And there's so many talented female rappers out there that don't necessarily fit that box. So it's like for people like them also, you don't have to fit a certain mold in order to be talented or, get a platform or receive exposure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about this time and age, is that we have the opportunity to kind of find those. And I love that you created that platform where we can find, some of these phenomenal artists that we may not necessarily know about. So could you take us through a little bit more on what we can find on your platform and the people that are listening to this right now?
Sure. Okay, so we have quite a range of things that are happening with the site and then the platform more widely on social media and such. So in terms of the actual platform itself, you'll find a lot of reviews, so like song reviews, album reviews, that sort of thing. You will also more recently find a lot of opinion pieces. So with everything going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, with us being a Black owned platform, it was vital that we spoke about that. So we've been talking about a lot of the things to do with black musicians, black artists, and sharing stories and our opinions on everything going on. There's a recent story that we just did about black women within the dance and EDM world, and basically how they weren't being credited. So what's happening is that their vocals are being used on songs, and they're like essentially the main part of the song, but they're not receiving credit, which obviously translate into the way that they're paid and royalties, and has adverse financial implications. So stuff like that is also what you'd find in our culture section. And then as well as that, we also have interviews with upcoming talent. And more recently, we started to do that on IG Live as well. So you'll find that on our social media too.
Nice. I definitely appreciate that. And again, kind of like we've been talking about is like so many times, I think obviously it's probably discouraging for artists like that, but I think it's probably even maybe discouraging for people that maybe want to do EDM or maybe want to do pop or and thinking of like going that route and not seeing that there's anybody or anything. So they kind of get discouraged in the very beginning. So that's why I love that you created a platform, because obviously it gives that opportunity for us to hear kind of different artists and different types of music, so to speak. But it also, I think, is very inspirational for those people that want to even go that route and realize that it's not not possible. It's actually something people are doing. They're just trying to get their name and their voice out there.
For sure. And that's kind of something else that we're trying to expand more on within the next couple of years in terms of the education side of things. So a lot of people, they want to do stuff, but they just have no idea where it is they should start. So a lot of our events will be centered around, teaching people how to network, how to write songs, how to, connect with the right producers, that sort of thing. And then on top of that, we also do that through our IG Live interviews as well. So we interview people from the industry, and we get their advice on how to break into the industry, or once you're there, how to navigate it. So yeah.
Nice. Absolutely. Knowledge is definitely power. So I appreciate you creating the knowledge for that. And so I wanted to ask you now for what I call your secret sauce. And this could be for you personally or your business and your platform. But what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
What's my secret sauce? I mean, is it a secret if I share it? No, I'm joking.
It's only me and you.
I think, well, in terms of the platform more widely, I think our secret sources are priority on long form content, because something that I found, especially with reviews, is that everyone kind of wants to be the first. So because everybody's rushing to be the first, like no one really takes time with reviews and things like that anymore. So you'll get 100 word, which is most likely copied from the press release, which is not really journalism, but we're not going to get into that. So yeah, you'll have a lot of that, and I that really irks me. So I've tried to avoid doing that, and that's something that me and my writing team definitely try to avoid. So we try and make sure that all of our reviews are relatively long form, quite in depth, and actually take time to make artists feel like we've seen and heard them, because that's something that I feel is really important. These artists, I think music is a labor of love. So I think with that being said, you want them to feel like you've actually sat down and paid attention to what it is that they've put their heart and soul into. So I want that to translate into the reviews. So with that being said, I'd say, yeah, prioritizing long form content and actually sitting and taking the time to sit with music and let it marinate before we actually write a review. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I appreciate that as well too. And as I say, I'm a journalist at heart too. I think a lot of times you have that everything's short, everything's laser focused, even though this is laser focused podcast, but at the same time, getting the opportunity to really drill down and learn more. And I think you spoke to something that I think a lot of times people forget is the heart and soul that people put into things that they create, specifically music, to understand all the intricacies, to really like delve down deep into what exactly they created, just like a piece of art. I think it takes being able to have that long form content to really drill into that. And I think it's to a detriment, I think, of ourselves, but also to the artists themselves when that's not being done. So I appreciate you kind of bucking the trend, so to speak, and creating that long form platform and the content.
For sure. And it's kind of it's about the artist at the end of the day. And I think that's really what sets us apart. We are not they're trying to be the first person on the scene of every single thing. I mean, it's cool when that happens, and obviously when we do get exclusive premieres, that's really cool too. But it's about more than that. Like, it's about giving these people a voice. So what is it that they are actually saying? And you can't give someone a voice if you're not paying attention to what they're actually saying. So yeah, that's what we try to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you're kind of going against the trend where everybody is kind of attracted to that, but you are leading, it sounds like, from my perspective, with value and providing high value, that to me lasts way longer than being quote unquote first in the comments, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. At least I'm hoping so.
I think so. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I want to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
To-do lists. I could not live without to-do lists. I think with me, because I'm working across so many different time zones, working all sorts of odd hours all the time, I think I would not be able to keep track of everything without to-do lists. And one other thing that I would say I use quite frequently is scheduling. And that's everything from emails to tweets to social media posts. Like, literally everything is scheduled for me. Because obviously I don't think it's appropriate to be emailing someone at like 10 p.m. their time just because it's an appropriate time your time. So I think, yeah, scheduling, and I think Google Mail is really, really helpful for that. They are fantastic when it comes down to scheduling emails. So scheduling and to-do lists, just to keep track of everything. And also, I like to tick things off. It gives me a sense of satisfaction. It makes me feel like I've accomplished stuff. So yeah, I love a good to-do list for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the most awesome things that you can do is to check something off your to-do list. I definitely kind of co-sign on that. And I think that especially with, as you mentioned, like juggling so many different things, and especially trying to kind of keep all those things in our head is to our detriment, because not only does it not allow us, I think, to be our best selves in so many other aspects, but I think we also, at least me personally, I find myself forgetting things or dropping things. But
Oh
when
yeah,
you religiously say, hey, I'm going to put this on my to-do list, or I'm going to make sure to schedule these things out in advance, that allows you to kind of free up your mind, free up your focus, and then allow you to kind of be your best self in other aspects.
for sure. And also, it kind of tells you when to delegate something. Because for
Mm.
me, if I put something on a to-do list and it's been there for over a week and I've still not done it, I know that I genuinely don't have the time to do something. So that's like time to shift it to somebody else because I'm not going to get
Yeah.
around to it. So I think it's also helpful for telling you what you can and can't manage, which is, I think, it's really helpful.
Yeah, and I love that, because that's a kind of a hack within a hack, because I think so many times too that we don't know everything that we're doing either. And I think when we write it down, when we are going to take that step to delegate it to somebody else, or provide or give somebody that direction, at least we have that in place, that these are the things that need to be done. Again, it's not in our head where we're trying to have to do that. It's still a habit where we're kind of being able to kind of be more effective with our time and our energy.
For sure. Yeah. That's really
Awesome.
hard though. That's something I definitely have found hard. Like, I'm a massive control freak. I'll admit that right now. So like the moment that like I have to delegate, it's always like, ooh. So kind of seeing something on my list that I haven't been able to do is
Hmm.
like a visual representation of, you physically cannot do this. Give it to
Yeah.
somebody else. So yeah, I'll definitely say that's helpful.
Yeah, and I think it's powerful too, because I find that I sometimes have a kind of a, I don't know if I call it a mental block or what, to certain tasks that I don't really want to
Hmm.
do them either. And a lot of
Hmm.
times they'll end up on the to-do list for longer than they should be. Sometimes it's because, you're overwhelmed, but sometimes it's just because you don't necessarily feel like it's in your zone of genius. And I think the more you can get those things off your plate, you can operate more in your zone of genius, and it creates that win-win opportunity.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Awesome. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the CEO nugget. And this could be like a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. It's something you might tell somebody that's a client, or if you were to hop into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
Ooh. Focus on delayed gratification.
Mm,
And the reason I say that is, part of what we do focuses on a lot of upcoming talent. And something that I found is, people don't pay attention unless you give them a reason to. And you're not going to be able to give them a reason to instantly. It's not going to happen straight away. It's just how the human mind works. People tend to engage with things that they're already familiar with. So to build that familiarity takes time. So yeah, I would definitely say, don't expect things to happen right away. Focus on delayed gratification.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful. And I think there's a saying like the secret to the overnight success is that it takes 10 years. And I think so many times when you reach so much success, a lot of times we just see that, I guess that snapshot of somebody's life or a snapshot of their accomplishments, but we don't see kind of like the delayed gratification they invested in so that those things can happen. And I think so many times it's to our detriment, as people that are getting started with things, but also to the people that have put in so many hours and time and resources into what it is that they do, that we don't recognize that these people sometimes have been playing the long game, and we need to do that ourselves if we want to be successful.
For sure. Like no overnight success actually happens overnight. So I definitely would agree with that. It's always about this kind of opportunity meets the right timing, but that will only happen if you're investing time in way prior to that happening. So yeah.
Exactly. It's planting those seeds when you don't always see them sprouting. And once they start sprouting and growing, that's when we start to see the fruits of our labor. And so
Sure.
now I wanted to ask you what I call kind of my favorite question, the glue question, even of the podcast, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So, Ray, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Oh, to be a CEO to me means being a visionary. So it's kind of like you are the captain of a ship. You have to charter out the destination and then steer everybody else to wherever that destination is. So yeah, I think being a leader and being able to manage people and all of that is all well and good, but even prior to that, you have to have a vision, and you also have to have some type of idea as to how you are going to get people there, because no one's going to believe in that vision unless it's kind of steady and secure and you have a clear idea of what it is that you are trying to achieve. So yeah, be a
Yeah,
visionary.
absolutely. I love that. And it kind of tying into what we talked about with the hack is just, I mean, the nugget is just understanding the vision and where you're going to go and understand the process that it takes to do there. And I think a true leader is able to not only kind of articulate that, but also kind of maybe be that motivational person for the people on the team as well too, to understand that this is the vision, this is what it's probably going to look like. And I think when you're able to do that and set those expectations, that's when you're really truly able to lead and really able to create some phenomenal opportunities for the world.
For sure. And the thing about being the captain is that's just one role. The captain also realizes that they need a crew. So it's kind of also this idea of realizing that you can't do everything at once, and you can't do everything that needs to be done in order to get the ship somewhere, but you do have a role in choosing the destination and steering the ship there. Once you've got that in place, then everybody else will fall in line. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of like you have to have that ego to be able to start something and create something, but you also have to be able to step back and understand that you
Right.
have people that are on the team that may be better than us in certain aspects. And that's the reason that they're on the team, so that they can really shine their light as best as possible and create that win-win-win opportunity. So definitely appreciate that definition. And I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get a hold of you and find out about all the awesome things that you and your team are working on.
Well, the best way to get in contact with me personally would be via my social media. I'm Ray Sang XOXO across all social media. I had a bit of a thing with Gossip Girl when I was a lot younger, which is why all my social media have XOXO, but we're going to roll with it. And then to find IndustryMe on socials, our Instagram is IndustryMe Official, and our Twitter is IndustryMe with two E's. And if you would like to make a submission to us, it's industryme@gmail.com. That's industryme with two E's, so spelled the same way as our Twitter. And yeah, just look forward to more educational content, more interviews, more reviews, and more music discovery.
Nice. Well, I definitely appreciate that. We will have the links and information in the show notes. And from one journalist at heart to another, I appreciate all you're doing and the way you're getting people's names and the work that they're doing out. So truly appreciate that and everything you stand for. And I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. And I appreciate you taking the time out to put me in the hot seat for once. So thank
There
you
you
very
go.
much for your time.
You're welcome.